they need faster drones, it's one thing. Triumph has done a fantastic job of arriving with 2 motorbikes that are ready for enduro right now. Hey, I'm JP, welcome to Enduro 21's YouTube channel, and welcome to, hang on, let's walk up here. Welcome to Les Comes, which is a massive off-road park in North Spain. In fact, it's a very local place for a certain guy called Josep Garcia, you may have heard of him. And yeah, we're here for the Triumph Enduro model launch. And I've just spent the day, all morning on the 450 and then all afternoon on the 250. A good best part of an hour talking to people, the Triumph people here, lead product people, and some of the designers and the people who are responsible for different parts of the models. Paul Edmondson is here, you know, who's led a very long R&D program along with Ivan Cervantes. There are some key parts to understand, not least that right from the very first spark of an idea, off-road and enduro has ran in parallel with the motocross. So it's this with the motocross bike development. So this hasn't ever been a motocross project first, then enduro coming second. They ran in parallel. A lot of people will be wondering why there isn't a 350 model, since 300 4-stroke 354, 2-strokes 354 strokes are so popular in enduro. It's as simple as the sort of standard default setting, I suppose you might say, for motocross classes is 250 for MX2, MX1, however you want to define it. And it made much more sense sort of for the company to go down that line initially with their first models. However, although I haven't been told directly, you can expect that there may be some other capacity bikes coming in the near future. Not in the near future, that's probably an inaccuracy, but they are looking at different model denominations, and I would suggest that would be a 350 4-stroke. 2-strokes, almost certainly not. It's too much trouble for all sorts of reasons, and I think they're quite keen on just focusing on what they're doing here. As for the bikes themselves, I went out on the 450 in the morning. I wouldn't naturally choose a 450 personally, so to go out on that first thing this morning, where a massive load of overnight rain had made the ground really slippery. I would rather have been on the 250 first, but I was proved completely wrong very, very quickly. The 450 is so much more manageable than I expected. The weight difference is something like 3 kilograms, I think, something like that. And you really do feel like that bike is, it doesn't feel like a powerful rip snorting 450 like some 450s can. Last year I rode the 450 Sherco in similarly damp, wet conditions in France. And it was a rocket ship. It was unbelievable to ride, but in terms of trying to get it around an enduro test, it was too much. It was too much like hard work. Whereas today on the 450 TF450E, it was enduro model. It felt much more in my control, and I ended up honestly really enjoying the ride. Planted bike, so for somebody who's used to riding 2-strokes a little bit more just lately, having that engine inertia into corners was, you know, I quickly adapted and found the benefit of having a nice planted bike in corners. Having said that, I did an awesome bit of track just up across the hill as I'm sitting here looking at you over there, over those trees. There's a long, fast as hell bit where we did the drone footage, where they just said, right, you've just got to ride from A to B as fast as you can, and the drone will follow you. So I set off with a race start, and for me, I think I probably blew out a few cobwebs there. I did go as fast as I could, to the point where when I got to the bottom they said, yeah, you went a bit too fast there, the drone couldn't keep up. So they need faster drones, it's one thing, but what that proved is I was super confident riding the 250, and even though you think, oh, 250 hasn't got enough power, it's definitely got enough power. You know, it just requires you to use the gears a bit more, and the beauty of the fact that it's more or less the same bike but lighter, more agile feeling because of it being a 250, not a 450. The confidence is sky high on a bike like that. It was not long into my afternoon of riding on it where I was kind of feeling like, yeah, I'm in charge of this bike. I feel great riding it, and it's doing all the things I want it to do, and yeah, super enjoyable ride. I came at it with all the knowledge of Johnny Walker riding once in the Super Enduro World Championship, and how the Enduro GP boys, Mikael Persson and Jamie McCanny are riding them Enduro GPs and already putting them on podiums. Johnny obviously second in the World Championship, Super Enduro World Championship, but you know, Mickey and Jamie, they're already up there. You know, they're already winning races. They're already getting on the podiums in World Championship level. So that's the 250 proving itself, and they are. And I trust when Paul Edmondson says this to me, they are more or less the standard bike. You know, they've obviously got some setup differences and a few bits and bobs, but more or less the bike that you can buy, you will be able to buy from June 2025, is the same bike that they're racing. And what I quickly found is that it just needed a little bit more setup for me to be a bit more comfortable on it. So there was a KYB suspension technician here, and I went to him and I just said, oh, I'm feeling this problem. It's too washy when I'm accelerating across, leaning over the bike. It's too washy like this, and it's diving too much. He made a few changes. I went back out and did exactly the same test over and over again, and it was it transformed it really. It made it a much more comfortable bike, and then quickly then you get back into the mode of, you know, a 254 stroke is one of the most rewarding bikes you'd ever ride. It just felt like I was the boss of the bike, and I was having a blast really quickly. So very definitely I enjoyed riding both bikes, whereas in other when you come on a model bike manufacturer's bike launch like this, sometimes you can jump on different bikes and you go, oh, I'm not so sure about that, and you know, less inclined to spend more time on that bike because it's not kind of your thing, or it's more difficult in the circumstances that you're riding. Whereas both bikes, both 250 and 450, I really enjoyed riding them. Everything's right, you know, it's got all the components and equipment on it that you want. Everything feels right. The you know, KYB suspension I've mentioned already, but you know, Brembo brakes, and you know, it's the good stuff that's already there, and the component list on the bikes is the quality that Triumph said it needed to have. That the development riders said, look, if you want to make an enduro bike, it needs to have these things as a bare minimum to make people take it seriously, and the proof has been very much in the pudding riding these bikes around here. We've done everything from flat grass tests, sort of more motocrossy things, definitely some rocky hard enduro type stuff, and it's been a very rounded test of the bike. So it's not like we've come away from this thinking, I wonder what it's like in that kind of situation. So the only kind of, yeah, like I said, I needed to set the 250 up a little bit more. So for me, that I needed to get a little bit more confident with how the suspension was set up in order to ride as confidently as I wanted to. But the 450 straight off the bat, I just rode it as it was, and it was great. What else did I notice? I did notice especially I suppose after riding a two-stroke so much, I did start to notice the heavier clutch. on a 4-stroke, especially on the 450. There were some long trails, single track trails through trees type things, rocky, slippy routes, and you're on the clutch a lot, you know, for sort of 10-15 minutes of riding, and I did feel like suddenly after a while, you know, your left arm's getting a bit knackered. So I noticed the clutches felt a bit heavy to me personally, but I wouldn't really, you know, that is what it is. It's not a negative too much. Just need to man up a bit in my forearm, don't I? What else to say? I didn't feel especially excited about the new Michelin tyres on the really slippery conditions in the morning. I think I got more comfortable with them as the day wore on and the sun came out, as it just has, and the ground dried out a bit more. They felt more stable on rocky hard packs type stuff, but on the slippery conditions I didn't feel too confident with these new generation Michelin Enduro tyres. Maybe I'm just not used to them. What else to say? I know that they've done an awful lot of development on an R&D, and you know, hundreds and hundreds of hours on you know, stress testing the motors, the cranks, and you know, the components of the bike. So it's one thing that, you know, what's been good about this launch test here is being able to speak to the guy that's done that, been responsible for that. You know, Paul Edmondson, and he's got a team of people who have got quite a range of riding abilities. You know, it's not just about being as fast as a world champion, it's about being your average guy or girl riding bikes, just you know, living with that bike, putting hours and hours and hours on them. I also trust the fact that they've put in an awful lot of hours behind the scenes making these bikes yeah, bulletproof and fit for the job. You know, they've already been proving themselves for almost a year in motocross, I don't expect this to sort of be the kind of bike where you're going to have to suddenly start searching out parts straight away. You know, we've treated them pretty roughly, and there's an awful lot of journalists who can do a bad job of treating a bike, and everything's standing up to it. So I think, you know, we don't obviously know the amount of hours that you will get on your bike when you buy one, but I trust them when they say there's been an awful lot of R&D hours, stress testing, put into these bikes. As for the dealer network, a few people are asking questions about that. That's kind of a thing which is ongoing and expanding. There is a massive network of Triumph dealers. Not all of them will have off-road bikes in them. Some of them will. There's also a plan afoot to be, you know, for the enduro bikes to go to specialist dealers, because I think they are quite well aware that, you know, it's all very well having a supercross race team where, you know, the Triumph brand is big in lights, it's all over the banners or whatever. But for enduro, we are literally grassroots, aren't we? So I think they are very well aware of that, and they are already in the process of expanding their specialist dealer networks globally. So at the moment that is in Europe. It's very soon going to be in America when the bikes are launched over there. There will be different models coming over there, by the way, to suit your regulations. And then also Australia, you're also going to have your own bikes dealer network, and so on and so on. And, you know, into Asia for sure. Some of the guys that sent me questions on Enduro 21 before I came here were asking about, you know, how far around the world are the bikes going to go. They will go out to Asia, to China, to places like that. But it's coming in the future. It's not here yet. They're sort of focusing in Europe, then America, Australia, and sort of where the core markets are, and then they will grow. But you can rely on, I think you can rely on that thing coming in the pipeline, because they're quite confident about how good the bike is, and in my experience riding it today, they've every right to be, and they're quite confident that they've got a good product, a good motorbike, good two motorbikes that they can put out into the world, and people will want to ride them.
We're ready, Jared.
that it? I think that's about it. The local brew here is, it helps at the end of a long day riding motorbikes to have a beer. I think it makes you feel alive. Motorbikes make you feel alive anyway, but a beer always helps. There will be more on the website, more details, more content. I've got quite a few really good interviews from being here today with some of the riders, with some of the technical people. We'll always be in touch, always put comments, or try and reply to everything as soon as we can, but we're always accessible. If you go on to stories on the website, email address, contacts are there at the bottom of all the stories. But if you've got questions, get in touch. But as far as I can tell from riding these two bikes around here, Triumph has done a fantastic job of arriving with two motorbikes that are ready for enduro right now. They're not going to be the sort of bike where you think, oh, the first models, I'm not sure. I think they're ready right now. Yeah, as ever, stay tuned to Enduro 21, the website. This is just a brief summary on YouTube. Give you some riding impressions, feel of the day, feel of the new bikes, and yeah, don't hesitate to be in touch. Cheers.